there is a lot of different uses for honey, which is one of the reasons why it's just so cool. Not only can you eat it, but it treats all these different things, which is just so neat.
God gave us a little miracle product right there, and
Yeah.
we've been fortunate enough to work with it. So.
From the blog Random Sweets, I'm Stacy Mergenthal, and this is Funeral Potatoes and Wool Mittens, a show for people who embrace the warm and cozy spirit of everyday living in the northern Midwest. I'm so happy you've tuned in because you are in for a sweet and sticky treat today. Joining me are Adee Honey Farms' second and third generation family members, Marla Hoyer and Sarah Hauge. Marla is founder Richard Adee's daughter, and Sarah is Richard's granddaughter, also Marla's daughter. We cover everything from the history of Adee Honey Farms way back to even before Richard and his brother Stanley purchased the South Dakota honey operation of about 1,000 honeybee colonies in 1957, which was when their parents thought they were finishing college, to how the family has grown the business to 100,000 colonies of bees that journey thousands of miles between producing honey in several states and pollinating almonds in California and apple orchards in Washington. And that's also alongside with Richard's sons, Brett and Kelvin. And as with any agricultural industry, growth comes with challenges, and honey production is not immune, so Marla gives us a little insight into that. Sarah shares about the company's rebrand and adding new merch like hats, stickers, and t-shirts. Yeah, I have the stickers and I have the hat. Very cool. We cover a few health benefits and the healing power of honey, tips to enhancing your baking, and how to be a smart consumer when it comes to fraudulent honey. Who knew? Plus, after many years of mostly selling to the wholesale market, they let us in on a few development ideas as the company expands their retail line to meet the needs and wants of consumers, like me. We wrap up the episode with a mocktail recipe using a simple syrup made of honey, the sought-after recipe for honey of a fudge sauce, and Marla is so kind to share her Grandma May Adee's honey apple crisp recipe. This episode's jam-packed with so much more good stuff like Bruce Honey Days, how the color of your honey affects the flavor of the dish you're making, and tips for substituting honey for sugar, maple syrup, and corn syrup. Can you believe it? And you'll learn why you should add honey to your first aid kit, and why you want to turn honey bottles upside down and watch how the bubble flows through the honey. So we just need to get to it because there's so much. And remember, today's recipes, links, and some really cool photos that Adee Honey Farms shared with us are on randomsweets.com. Well, Marla and Sarah, welcome. I'm so happy to have you on Funeral Potatoes and Wool Mittens. Welcome.
Thank you so much. We're excited to be here and share our knowledge of honey and a little bit about our story.
Right. And I know quite a bit, but I know that I'm going to learn a lot. I have a lot of questions and I'm excited to share with everyone. And I'm a huge fan of Adee Honey. So this is like the ultimate dream for me.
Wow. Well, thank you for thinking of us and inviting us.
Sure. So I'm going to have you, Marla and Sarah, kind of just introduce yourselves a little bit so that everybody knows who we're talking with today.
Okay, perfect. Sure. Take it away, Mom.
Okay, well, I am Marla Hoyer, and I started in this business very, very young. It was started by my dad. So I'm in the business with my dad, my two brothers, several nephews, and then my daughter, Sarah, has joined us, and my other daughter, Hannah, is also working with us. So kind of a little bit of a family, very much of a family operation. So we're just excited for the future holds. We've got a very good base and we enjoy them moving forward.
Mm-hmm. And a great product. And Marla, your dad is Richard Adee.
He is. Right? My dad is Richard Adee. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, I guess I'm next. My name is Sarah Hauge, and I'm pretty fresh in the business. I've been here for about 2.5 years. And we've really just hit the ground running with a lot of fun things that we'll talk about a little bit later in the podcast. But I have some background in corporate and nonprofit event planning and economic development. And so just pulling a lot of those different strengths from previous jobs into this position and seeing how we can make the family business grow and prosper for many generations.
You've been doing wonderful things. It's been fun to watch how things have grown and become more visible, I think, to
Yeah.
people, having merch, and you have fun new logo, and just like you said, we'll get into that here in a little bit, but that's something that I've loved to watch about you too the last few years. Sarah, where did I first meet you? Was it, you didn't work at the chamber, right? You were at the Brookings Economic Development Center.
Yep. Brookings Economic Development, I think, is how we first got introduced. And Stacey, you do
Sure.
such a nice job with all your blogs and everything. So I've kind of followed along with your story and just kind of got connected and networked that way, I think.
Thanks. When you were at the BEDC, I didn't know that you had any ties to the Adee family.
Yeah. We were just so excited that she had that opportunity that came up. The timing was right for her to join in and just lend her expertise to us and take us to another level or help us get there. So.
Oh, I bet. Oh, that's so sweet to have your own mom say that.
I know. Oh, what a compliment.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
It's super fun working with all your family members. There's lots of good days and bad days, but I would say one of the best perks is every day my grandpa still comes into the office and he has coffee with some of the workers during break, and he's 87 or 88. And so it's such a highlight of my day to have him come in with his cheerful little smile and greet everybody and tell a couple jokes. And so
make the circle, ask how everybody's doing.
Yes. So that extra time is just so precious. I just love it.
And that's really a testament to how your whole organization is run. That Midwest, being nice and humble, you guys are just that kind of company, which is another thing I love about you.
Yeah. Dad just has loved the people he has encountered throughout this business, whether they be people that have worked for us, people who he has shared his expertise with that are just wanting to start out with their own one little hive in their backyard. I mean, he has loved every bit of it, every step along the way, and has really tried to pour that to us. And we just try to live up to his expectations and the bar he set. It was a very high bar, and we could be prouder of him.
Speaking of your dad, of Richard Adee, then Marla, why don't you talk a little bit about the history of Adee Honey? You're located in Bruce, South Dakota, which is about a 15-20 minute drive northwest of Brookings.
Yeah, that's correct.
And the town itself has a population of a couple hundred people.
Right. We will say about 300, but it's been about that for many years. So, and there's a lot of town pride in our little town of Bruce. So we love the community that we're in.
And you're probably the largest employer in town?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Safe guess, right? I didn't think the bank had that many employees.
Yeah, the bank has lots of great employees too.
Yeah. Let's hear a little bit of the history, Marla.
My dad grew up in a family where he got his exposure to bees and honey, and it started the curiosity and the interest in him at a very young age. His father, my grandfather, was a school teacher, and they lived in Kansas. Most of his teaching career was in Kansas. And it went through very, very lean years, in the 30s, and there wasn't a lot of food on the table. Money was really hard to come by. So a lot of the teaching professionals in that day had to look for other means to support their families. So my grandfather, and he had several brothers that were also in the teaching profession, started trying to go to farm sales, and they had Watkins products, and they were trying to sell their Watkins products at farm sales to families that were having or that were there visiting the sale and potentially buying things. So it earned them a little bit of extra money. So it was a very good thing. At one of the farm sales, one of my grandpa's brothers saw a hive of bees, or several hive of bees, that was being auctioned off. And so he's like, well, nobody was bidding on them. He thought, what the heck? I'm gonna bid on those bees, and I'm gonna take them home. So he did. It must have been toward the end of the season, because those hives had honey in them. And he got the bees home, And he figured out how to get the honey out of the hive. He put it in his little jars, took it on the road with all his other Watkins products, and honey blew his Watkins products away. And he's like, oh boy, I need more of this.
Right.
So he reached out to all his brothers that were in the same boat as him and said, you guys have got to get bees. So eventually there was the brothers, and all of them went out, bought a few beehives, a few at a time, and started getting honey out of the hive. And so they would use that honey to sell, they would use it to barter and trade, and it just really helped all those little families to a point that several of them got out of the teaching profession and went into full-time beekeeping.
Wow. So, was that in Kansas?
It was in Kansas, right? Yeah.
Okay.
So my dad always likes to say every time they had family reunions, it was like a little beekeeping convention, because all his uncles would come over and his dad, and the men would sit in a circle and they'd talk about, well, I did this to my hive and it really, really did well, or I did this and I think I killed one, or, so he was always just fascinated listening to all his uncles talk. And so from a very young age, he's like, I'm going to be a beekeeper. There was no ifs, ands, and buts. He was going to be a beekeeper. And so that really set the stage for what came next. He had a younger brother. His younger brother also shared his enthusiasm and the desire to also raise bees. But mom and dad coming from my grandparents, his mom and dad coming from an education background, were very insistent that those boys got some education and just not go out and start raising bees. So they went to college, started getting some education. My dad was about a semester away from graduating when they saw an ad in a beekeeping journal for a little beekeeper up in Bruce, South Dakota, that was going to go into retirement and wanted to sell his operation. My dad and my uncle Stanley immediately replied to this beekeeper and went to meet him and bought the business. Didn't tell mom and dad yet. So they bought the business up here in Bruce, and they bought it with the idea that they would work it for a short period of time and work towards purchasing the operation, which they did. So that was very exciting. They eventually had to go back and tell dad that we are now full-fledged commercial beekeepers and not a college graduate like you had hoped. But they did okay. They had enough beneath them, so to give them a good foundation.
I was just going to ask if your dad finished that semester then.
He did not. He promised his mom and dad, our Brookings has a college. I will go get those last credits and I will finish. But I got a little busy.
Yeah, it appears it didn't make a difference. So that's great.
But he got what he needed to go forward with it. So,
what is your grandpa's name?
My grandpa's name was Vernon Adee.
Vernon, okay. Yeah. And who did they buy the honey farm from? You know who it was?
Boy, I wish I had the name off the top of my head. I cannot.
That's okay.
I cannot think of it right now. I'm sorry. It's been so many years that it's just kind of been our thing.
Right.
But ironically, the little town of Bruce also, the beekeeper must have been there many, many years prior. The school mascot was the bee. So Bruce was the Bruce Bees. And then we happened to, just fall into it and get to have our beekeeping operation in the little town of Bruce. So.
And they came along in, what was it 1957?
It was 1957. And then unfortunately, my dad and my brother, my dad and his brother, I'm sorry, had Sarah a couple of years of running the operation together and having fun. And they were running in Bruce. And then the beekeeper they bought out also had a spring or a wintering operation down in Mississippi. And so that's what took us to Mississippi, is that was also part of the same operation. So they did the summers here in Bruce getting the honey, and then they would take the bees south and get them all rebuilt for the next season. So, and that was something they were able to do together, and moved a lot of miles and just really worked very hard to get that going and established. And in 1959, unfortunately, my uncle was killed. They were moving bees and they were in Kansas, and there was a truck wreck. And it was my dad, my grandfather, and then my uncle were all involved in the accident, and the uncle did not survive. So that was a really tough thing for them to overcome and for my dad to overcome. He was the driver, unfortunately. And so he just, he felt a great deal of pain. But it also then, I think, lit the fire in him that he was absolutely not going to fail in this business, because this is what Stanley wanted and this is what he wanted, and it really drove him to the success that he was able to achieve.
So what has he grown this business to with the help of his family?
Yeah, when he bought the company with Stanley, I think there was about 1,000 to 1,500 colonies of bees. At our high point, we were running close to 100,000 colonies of bees. So we are operating in multiple states. Originally, they were just in Bruce and in Mississippi. And today we operate in Bruce. We have a headquarters in Bruce, and then we also have operating centers in Roscoe, South Dakota, and Kimball, South Dakota. Then we have satellite locations across Sisseton, Clark. We also have a place in Wessington. Then we have touched down into Nebraska. We operated there for several years. We're not currently operating there, but we still have the facilities. We cross over a little bit into Minnesota, a little bit into North Dakota, and then our wintering would be in Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. So we also, in addition to running that circle, we touch into California, and that's a whole new side of the business that we've brought on. So we operate in California for pollination, and then in Washington State for apple pollination.
So they're in California during the almond pollination.
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, and we started that about in the 90s.
Isn't that cool that the bees from South Dakota and other places, they're out pollinating almonds in California?
It is so cool. These little bees get to travel around and just be snowbirds, and go see the country. So our cycle is really kind of fun. We're here in this part of the country in the summer months. Then usually we harvest our honey usually in about August, September timeframe. Then all the bees are kind of treated, rounded up, and loaded on trucks, and then sent out to California. So it is quite a fun process, seeing them loaded up and headed out to the sunshine of California. They usually get there in October, November timeframe. By the time we get everything there, they sit on what we call the high desert and kind of just rest, rejuvenate. We're feeding them with pollen supplements and just making sure they're getting everything they need to kind of rest. And then usually about January, depending upon the weather they're having in California, we pick those bees up that have been out on the desert and we move them into the almond orchards. So there's a very small window where they want the bees in the orchard. So they're kind of in very large holding yards at that point. And then we bring them in and we set them down in the groups they need into the pollen or into the orchards. So, and then it's very quick. They're there for, again, depending on weather, but maybe 2 weeks, maybe sometimes more, maybe sometimes less, sometimes 3 weeks. And then when they get the pollination that they desire on their trees, they say, get them out, get them out. So then we get them all out of the orchard. And part of that is they need to do treatments on their orchards at that point in time is very critical too. So we need to make sure we get them out and away so that it doesn't hurt the bees that are there too. So,
How many trucks do you bring out of bees to California?
A lot. I think at one point it was 160.
Yeah, 160 to 180. We've moved out there. We've been a little bit lower in more recent years, but it's quite a fun little caravan. So once those bees, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and when we're talking trucks, we're talking semi-loads of bees, the hive stacked, right?
Right. Yep. They travel really well. You always have a little bit of colonies that maybe don't come out the best, but for the most part, they do really well. We're really, we concentrate on the amount of time they're on that truck. And when they're on that truck needs to be moving. So we don't load them on the truck and let them sit in the heat anywhere. That is deadly to them. So once we get them on the truck, we throw a net over them and we send that truck down the road, get it moving. And then when we load early morning or in the evening. We concentrate on loading those trucks at cool times of the day too. And that is also so all of the bees are kind of clustered into their little hive. We get all of them. We don't have a whole bunch out foraging on flowers that get left behind. So they're all home. They're all where they're supposed to be. We just pick them up when they're sleeping, doing their thing, and put them on the truck and throw a net. And once the truck starts going, those little bees hear the wind kind of going past their hive. And they know, it's like, man, that is a windstorm out there. I am not going anywhere. So they just stay kind of hunkered down and in their hive. So sometimes if there's a breakdown or something that's unforeseen, then we ask that the guys driving will get water hoses, depending on the temperature, I guess I should say. And they make sure those bees have water and can stay cool. And then the little bees will start fanning their wings once they have the water. It's like a little air conditioning system for them.
Oh my gosh.
Trying to keep that hive at a consistent temperature. So
they are busy little bees.
They are busy little bees.
They've run a lot of miles.
They do.
Right.
Dad's
Right.
like joking that they were little frequent flyers.
So I want to just go back a minute to these other facilities that you have. I guess I understood that you were in a few other places, but not as many as what you just listed. Are you bottling at other places or just in Bruce?
No, we have 2 production harvesting facilities for our honey right now. We did, depending on the year, sometimes do that in California as well. But that's very dependent on the floral sources and everything that's blooming. Now, all the factors have to be right in order for us to do it there. But here in Dakota and the Midwest, we operate in Bruce with a production facility, and then we have a production facility in Roscoe. And usually everything that comes out of those production facilities, the majority of it is going to be in 55-gallon steel drums, is how we store it. So during our harvest season, though, we do open the door if somebody wants to come in and buy the raw, right out of the hive honey. We give people an opportunity to do that too.
I have done that.
Have you? Oh, great. That's fun.
Yes. Yeah. I brought some of my big mason jars, and I still have 1 or 2. They're pretty crystallized. So that's something that we can get to here in just a little bit about. Because I know it's still good. It doesn't mean to throw it away, and it's still really good honey. So those big drums, what do you do with those? Do those fill your small bottles? Do those get sold to big companies? Where do your big drums go?
A variety of sources. Sometimes we, in the past, we sold almost everything we had out in the 55-gallon drum. So usually that would go to a packing house. The packing house would run it through their plant, run it through a whole series of filters, trying to clean the honey, getting all the wax particles out of it. And that was to give it a little bit more long shelf life. So when it has the wax particles and the features that it has when it's raw, it tends to crystallize faster. And then on the store shelves, that is usually something that turns people away. So that is one of the reasons why packing houses will filter it, just to make sure it looks like that nice, clear honey product that everybody envisions. So
the liquid gold.
The liquid gold, yeah. We do always do honey for the landowners that allow us to put honeybees on their property during the summer season. And so those are packed by a packing house here in South Dakota, another little packing company, Myers, and family H. Myers do that for us and help us with that. So then they put it in the containers that we choose, and then we distribute it out as a way to say thank you for allowing us to have this little corner of your land for our beehives. So,
and that is so sweet. And I actually was the recipient of those a few years, because when my sister Callie lived over in that area, they had some of your bees on their property. And so she would get those jugs and she would give them to family members for Christmas.
We hear so many people do that. That is awesome. We love it. Yeah.
It's a great gift.
Yeah, we've had people over the history of the company that have reached out to us. Maybe they'll be in staff top of my head, maybe Georgia, and they're like, "We have a bottle here." I'm like, "How in the world did you get a bottle of honey down there?" But they're like, they knew a family member who knew a family member who passed it on. So those are great stories.
Well, I'm like, we have about 20-ish acres here where we're at over by Lake Benton in Minnesota. And I'm like, how can I get some of those hives on my land so I can get some honey?
Well, you're talking to the right people.
All right. Well, truck them on over.
Had a variety of things. When we get people that are really kind and they reach out to us, they say, "Hey, we have got some great pollinator habitat in our area, fields that the bees will just thrive on." And so then we'll send, make a list and send our crew out to evaluate to see if we can access it well, if there's good water, good flowers, and all of that. So then we kind of evaluate the best areas to put the bees on. We really are looking for clover and flowers and things of that nature. We have a lot of corn and soybeans in our area, which is great, but it has limited a little bit the bee forage that we do have right around here in the Bruce area. So we have our numbers of colonies that we've kept in this area have changed a little bit due to that factor. And we try spreading them out in areas where we may have better forage opportunities for them.
So you've been in business for 66 years as the Adee family, the Honey Farms. And what's for the next generation? Who's coming into the business now? And Sarah, you have a new daughter in the last year, and 20, 30 years from now, will she be working there? And
I hope so. I think that's the dream of our generation. And I know my dad, when he looks at his grandchildren that are there in the company, he grins and makes him very, very happy. I hope that's where we're able to go. It's ag, and there's always a bunch of unknowns. That we have good years, we have bad years, lots of strategy in place, like we just mentioned, finding the right kind of forage for the bees. So hopefully, that has definitely been a changing dynamic in our business, and caused us to have to branch out further and further, looking for that perfect area for them. I'm hoping we can continue it long into the future. We, as you have mentioned with Sarah earlier, you've seen some of our rebranding, and we are hoping to get more into that direct to consumer market as well. So Sarah can speak a little bit more to that, but we really are pushing in that direction, and the timing is just really great. We have an opportunity to talk to lots of people and make them aware of our product. It's a little bit different environment than when you used to have to fight for shelf space on a grocery store, which is very hard for a little guy to do. It's just limitless opportunities now. Mm-hmm. We have it with our honey. We have it with other products of the hive. We have wax. We can develop into the pollens. People have reached out about that we can sell. There's different things we can develop going forward, with even face creams and lotions and chapsticks. And it really is limitless, and it's exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's really fun about what I get to do is we're trying a bunch of different things and seeing what works well. So for example, last year we added some like honey candies and honey sticks that we throw out for the Honey Days parade. And I was like, you know what, we're just going to try this and see how it goes over. I'm sure nobody's even going to notice. Well, it turns out it's been super successful. And so we're looking into how can we grow those kinds of things. And like my mom said, try to expand on some of the products. We're positioned really well because we have a lot of honey and we have a lot of wax. And so we're really just trying to see what makes sense, find our niche in this specialty foods market, trying to do a good job of telling our story, which means educating people on bees and honey and the importance of shopping local and some of those different aspects. And so it's been super fun the last couple of years to just tap into that creativity and try different things. Some things work, some things don't. Some things need tweaking after we do different products. And so, yeah, it's just been a fun learning curve.
One of the most fun things we just did with these little squeeze pouches, honey's been packaged in a plastic squeeze bear or glass for so long. And Sarah was experimenting with the pouches. I'm going to compare them to like a sour cream pouch that you may see in the store, you know, that goes upside down and it's soft, it's pliable, you just squish it. It is fabulous. It does not drip. It's clean. People really love it. The problem that we are trying to navigate now with that is the crystallization factor, because when we put it in there, we want some of that natural pollens and all of that. So we're not filtering it to the level that a lot of packing houses may. And so we're trying to navigate now, just how can we keep these pouches, which are such a great way to utilize honey, in the best form for the consumer to use. So that's, Sarah's trying to figure that out right now, and some other challenges, but it's like you make one step forward, you try something new, and then we're going to tweak it and we're going to get it to a point where it's perfected, hopefully. So
yeah, it's been super fun. We've had such great feedback on those pouches. We were actually just talking to somebody the other day, and he's like, oh, I just throw them in our little lunch sack when we go RVing, and we take them out with the kids, and they're so easy. And it's just been super fun to hear all that positive feedback on something new that you're trying. You never know if these new experiments are going to go over well. And so far, it's been so fun.
Yeah, I don't know how people could not love those. I'm on my second one and it's pretty much gone. So I've gone through 2 basically. Right. And I think that, I mean, I have the jars and everything, but that one I've used mostly to make coffee drinks. And this last one now is probably getting just a little bit crystallized, I suppose, but it's still squeezing out. And you're right, it doesn't drip. It just has this nice hard, open and close at the bottom, and it just sits in my cupboard, and it's brilliant. I'm like, I've never seen this before in honey.
Right. Yeah. Like we said, we just wanted to get something that stands out, that's super practical, easy to use. The number one, I don't know if it's a complaint, but hesitation with honey is that it's super messy. And so you don't want to clean up your cupboard, or you put it down on the counter and it's all sticky after you use it. It's dripping down the side. And so we really wanted to come up with something that was like kid friendly, husband friendly, family friendly, super easy to use. Yeah. So I think we accomplished that.
Yeah. Right. You don't even have to put the lid back on, because it's just a snap lid that's connected to the package. So yeah. And if people want those right now, the only place for them to go is to go on to, is it Adee Honey or adeehoneyfarms.com?
Yeah, so it's adeehoneyfarms.com, and we have our creamed honey on there as well. And then our classic honey, which is super popular. That's the traditional stuff that you would see in the stores. But maybe I'll talk a little bit about the creamed honey, because that is just so popular. For those that have not tried it, creamed honey, although it sounds like there's added ingredients in there, it's really just spun honey. So they take these really fine crystals that naturally occur in honey, and they spin them or whip them together to get this really nice, light and fluffy texture. And so when we put it in jars, it's not drippy. It's super easy to spread on muffins and toast and pancakes and all those great things. And so that has just been super well received, and people really love that.
It kind of speaks to the mess component that people, because it does not drip quite as much. It's a little bit, just a little bit neater. So I think that's what a lot of people say they love about it. So.
But it is just pure honey, and so you don't have to refrigerate that either. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep. You don't need to refrigerate it. Sometimes it might liquefy, because it is honey, if it gets a little bit too warm. And so if that does happen, you can kind of just mix it all together and then pop it back in the fridge to get it to set up a little bit more. But yeah, it is just pure honey.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit, Sarah, about, like I said, all of a sudden there's this really cool logo, and there's these fun hats and t-shirts and some things on your website. Walk us through just a little bit of your rebranding and how that happened for the company. Because you already had kind of a cool logo. I still have one of the older jars with the older label. I still love my glass too. Of course I keep those, but tell us how that happened.
So we started that about 2 years ago when I came on. We had this vision where we wanted to start breaking into more of the direct to consumer market, do a little bit more retail type of things. And so we wanted to
yay.
Make it easier for people to get their hands on that good liquid gold.
Yes.
And so we really just started this rebrand and started interviewing some different marketing companies and ended up working with a good firm in Sioux Falls, Lawrence and Schiller. They've been super great to work with, and wanted to just do a good job of telling our story. And they really helped us come up with this beautiful logo with this nice swirly font that I don't know, replicates the swirl of honey and the drippiness and flow. And our new colors are orange and yellow, which kind of represent those honey colors and some of those flowers that we see out in the fields. And so just being super intentional with that rebrand. Not many families or businesses make it into third generations or are even around for 66 years. It's such a huge accomplishment. And so really just trying to get that out there as well. So with this fun rebrand, I'm like, you know what, we need to be proud, and we're going to do some cool swag and hats and t-shirts and stickers and all the things. And again, just part of that storytelling, getting your name out there a little bit more as well. With this rebrand, we did a little bit of sales out the door in our Bruce and Roscoe locations. And we've recently done the website, the e-commerce thing. And so rebranded our website, added some fun blogs and tips on how to use honey and some of those different things as well. And increase the social media presence, which has been really fun.
So you guys are on Facebook, you're on Instagram, and are you anywhere? Do you do Pinterest or YouTube?
Yeah, I'm starting to dabble in the Pinterest. This is totally new for me, managing all these kinds of things. And so I'm learning how to do Pinterest, starting at like the YouTube, the Twitter thing, just again, trying to utilize some of those platforms that others use to promote themselves. So,
right. So you do the pouches. Are you working on any other size of containers or anything?
Yeah. Yep. We're working on a couple different things. I would really love to put together some fun little gift pack. So maybe it's a trio with the classic honey, the creamed honey, and possibly an infused or flavored honey. Because, we mentioned earlier, but honey is such a great gift. And we have a lot of people come around during the holidays that are trying to put together gift baskets, whether it's for family members or teachers or just different things. And so putting together a nice little gift set is kind of in our pipeline. We'd like to put out some different flavored honeys, maybe a jalapeno honey, a cinnamon honey. Sky's the limit. You can mix a lot of good things with honey. And so just kind of experimenting that. We're in the early stages of what that might look like.
Well, and I think it's also really fun. We've added kind of to our lineup the 5-gallon pail. We've got those now. People that in maybe coffee shops, they wanted more than just that 2-pound size. They were like, but I don't want a 55-gallon drum. So we kind of come up with something that can go into those food service applications, or just maybe make it easier in a bulk sense. So we have those available now. Those are going to be hitting our website very, very soon, and we can send those out to wherever they need to go. So we're kind of meeting that need too. So we're trying to, really get on the small side of things, the gift side, and we're also trying to make it easy and more convenient for your commercial kitchens or things like that to utilize the honey as well.
Yeah, you guys are doing a really good job of moving from more of that B2B to the B2C, which of course I love because I'm the C.
Yeah.
But I mean, your options really are just exploding. There's so many, like you said, the sky's the limit for what you can do.
Yeah.
But are you limited to how much honey you have? How much gets produced? I mean, do you run out at the end of the year and go, well, we wanted to make cinnamon honey, but we didn't have any honey left?
We will have a lot of growing to do before we get to a point where we're concerned about running out.
All right.
Yeah. So we have that would be a wonderful problem if that happens. Right. And then then we just have limited time offerings. So, but to the consumer market, we'll be able to meet that for quite a while. We are still opened up to the wholesale market. That is still basically our bread and butter, that along with pollination. So, that's the main of our business. But we look for that consumer side to become bigger and bigger and bigger all the time. And we look to meet those needs that the consumer is asking for and wants. And so we hope that just drives sales in the direction we need it to go.
Great. That's exciting, because when I post different things about the Adee Honey, or I show the stickers or my hat, whatever, people will say, well, where can I go to get that?
Mhm.
And it'd be fun to have a few more places or options for people. But right now they definitely can purchase online from your store.
Yeah, absolutely. We're working on what the store on a retail side looks like. It's hard to get into big box stores, and I don't know if that's where we really want to be.
Sure.
I think we would focus more on those specialty natural food kind of markets.
We have a very fun partnership, and I didn't get permission to say it, but with a little food company in Madison. It has been great, and they're utilizing honey. And then we're sitting here brainstorming in our minds, how can we incorporate their product into our stuff too? So,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
it just kind of explodes and grows. And I think those are the opportunities we're really looking for. Those businesses that we both can just partner together and benefit in the end. So
Sure. Products. Okay, so we talked about those pouches, which, like I said, are just brilliant. But okay, the honey sticks. Now, I've seen honey sticks, people have them, whatever, but now Adee Honey has honey sticks, and you can buy them online in the bags. Maybe I'm speaking and they're not available right now. I don't know, but those are also very smart, because I mean, I use them at home, but I also, and I know my sister Callie, we carry them in our purse.
oh, to get that little pick me up, that's really
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. Or
I'm
add
not,
to coffee, or when we're in a restaurant or something, we want to add a little honey.
yeah. No, those have been so popular. Again, that goes back to our Honey Days parade.
Oh,
We throw out candy, all kinds of candy at Honey Days at parade. That's the fun of it. But then we're like, you know what? We need to really get honey-based products out there into people's hands. So then that's when we started doing the research, and we found the honey candies, and that's when we started adding the honey sticks. And we get kids that just, give us the honey sticks, and
right.
they keep all the Jolly Ranchers somewhere else. So, but
Right.
so those are products that have come from that. Now we source those outside of us. So we are finding vendors that have the honey in the sticks at this point in time. So that is not Adee Honey in the sticks. We are just providing it because it has been a very requested item for us. So we
Oh,
are
okay.
looking at hopefully developing that. That is one of our opportunities on our little chalkboard that we're looking at moving into. And when that contains Adee Honey, we will make an announcement so big
All
that
right.
everybody will hear and know.
See it from space.
Yeah,
Great.
exactly. So that is definitely coming in the future. So.
Good. They made good stocking stuffers too. So, I mean, my kids are grown adults and their significant others, but I still do stockings at Christmas. And, I stuck a handful of the honey sticks in a couple of them. So that was fun. And then
Oh,
you
that
talked about chapsticks, and infused honeys are kind of in process. So a lot of different things. But I know, Sarah, you're working, like you said, on really trying to tell your story, but also the education of honey and bees and hives and all of those things too, just bringing awareness to
it is.
it. Because I don't think, unless you've watched the Bee Movie, I don't know if
Yeah.
people realize how this world goes round because of bees, and what would happen if there weren't as many or any. And that might even bring us into what some of your challenges are in this industry. If you want to, Marla, do you want to talk to that?
Sure, I can talk a little bit to that. That is actually a very valid point. Education is a very big component of what we do. Educating people on generally the importance of the honeybee, the importance to food in general that the honeybee does from its work, and then just the health of the honeybee. What can we do in this environment to make it a safe environment for the honeybees to thrive? As well as other pollinators. Pollinators are very, very essential to our food supply. And so we need to be good stewards of our environment and make sure that we're providing a very safe place for them. So in recent years, part of the changing colony count numbers that we had is because we've been hit with the colony collapse disorder, which was just this mystery illness where you'd have great hives that just dwindled down to nothing and the bees were gone. And it really has affected commercial and private beekeeping beekeepers. So it has been a very big challenge. And as that has loomed in the background, we've become more aware of what we are using around in the environment and how is that impacting our hives as well. A lot of modern agriculture today has involved a lot of chemicals. They need it to make the crops grow in lots of situations, but we need to make sure that our bees are not close to that, that we protect them in that way. We're so very, very aware of, in California, if we have them near oranges, if we have them in almond orchards, before they need to go in and do any fungicide treatments. Those are very bad for the bees. So we want to make sure everything is out of that area. So, and it's just working with farmers and gardeners in the area. Don't put anything in your garden that you want the bees to come to your garden. Don't put anything in there that might hurt them, because they're going to take that back to the hive and it's going to become in their food supply. And so it's been a big challenge, but I believe we are making great strides.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I believe with some of the awareness, we're starting to get more phone calls from our farmers, letting us know that they're going to be spraying their fields before they spray them. And that's huge. So we have time to get our crew out there, move those hives before any damage can occur. And I feel like that's been a shift in the last several years, where farmers are becoming more aware of some of those strong chemicals that they're using and the effects that they have on bees. And so it's just a conversation that everyone's continuing to have. Go ahead.
Even outside of the commercial agriculture, in towns, we love to have beautiful yards and beautiful gardens and beautiful flowers. We don't want weeds anywhere. And maybe we have used a lot of weed killer excessively. Maybe we didn't need to use it so much, or pesticides in a way that would harm the bees. So I think it's a change in thought process. First is, let's not reach for chemicals first. Let's see what else we can do to maintain our beautiful yards. And I really think people are aware of that now more than they ever have been.
Yeah. So, this last year, the city of Brookings did a really fun campaign called No Mow May. And the thought behind that was to leave some of those weeds in your yard. So those
dandelions,
right?
Our bees love those.
So those little pollinators can come out of hibernation and pollinate those and get some food off of there. And so I think they had a lot of success with that program. But again, just that continued awareness that, these pollinators need our help. They can't do it on their own anymore. And so that's just been such a cool conversation to watch take place. And I think a lot of people are becoming more aware of where their food is sourced. And so we're seeing this shift in movement where you're seeing people try to get more farm to table type of food. So maybe you're going directly to the farmer to get your beef, or you're going to these different dairies to get your milk. And we're seeing that with honey too, because there's a lot of fraudulent honey on the market, which has been a challenge for our industry. And so, again, just that conversation piece is huge.
Sometimes people go into a store buying what they think is a honey, and if they did an analysis on it, it could just be colored syrup or colored sugar, I guess I would say. So there that exists, and we're not the only ag industry that exists. And I know I've heard of it, and the olive oil market has that challenge as well, and many food products. People try to thin out and cheapen down as low as they can get. And that's not saying everyone on the shelf is doing that, but I mean, it's just an awareness. You need to know the product you're buying. So
is the honey industry not regulated enough so that some fake honey, so to speak, could make it onto the shelf of a grocery store? I don't think consumers know that.
No, and I think that is a challenge in a lot of the ag industries. The way they are able to get around it, a lot of imports. When you see an imported product, a lot of times that will have maybe a rice sugar or something of that nature in it, and not everything is fully checked or vetted as it comes in. So it is definitely something that you need to have awareness. And like I said, I don't mean to say that every packer is that way, but there are definitely packers that have been doing that. And so lots of times we'll try to raise awareness of that any way we can. Our industry has several associations that all try to band together and raise awareness for a pure honey product. So we go through those channels, but there is not quite the regulation that you would envision in the food industry for what is coming in and getting put in a bottle and being called something that it's not.
Right. So if you're at the market, the grocery store, I guess. I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes I think if you're at a farmer's market, it's probably real honey, but if you're at a grocery store and there's shelves of honey, I mean, do the labels, if you look at the ingredients list, will it say if
The
there's
first thing I would look for if I were buying honey off a grocery store shelf is I would look for where it was sourced. It's supposed to label on the jar where it came from, what countries it did. If it has a hodgepodge of countries, I would like, I'm not sure. Maybe it's great. Maybe it's the real thing. So that would be the first thing I would look for. The next thing I would look for is I would turn it upside down and I would watch the bubble from the bottom to the top. I would watch how that bubble flowed through the honey. If it goes really fast, that's going to be a very liquidy honey, maybe not quite as thick as you might find. So that's another thing that I would look for personally. But then my first go-to would be just to try to find your small packing house, your small packer, something that says 100% USA. I think you can't go wrong if it has that labeling on it, in my opinion.
right? Okay. When we talk about flowers or garden, what are some, I mean, people can plant flowers much like we'll do milkweed for butterflies, right? I think.
Yeah.
Because we have some in our trees, we leave it out there because we know that it's valuable somewhere in the ecosystem. But for bees, what are a couple of the best flowers to plant?
Our best floral plants is the clovers that you see out. We love the yellow clovers, the white clovers. When they're down south, we see a lot of red clover. You'll see some of that here too, but those are very good bee plants. If you drive around right now, and because of the rains we've had, you see a lot of that white clover coming on now, and that is just a premium plant for us. So the thing is, we can have some of that clover all around us and possibly not make honey. And the other component to that would be the moisture that's in the air, because you can have the plant, but it will not have any nectar in it. So if you can smell the clover, usually the nectar is there, and that is the plant that the bees will just really do well on and make a lot of honey off of.
Okay. Let's transition into one of my favorite parts, which is the food and the baking and the recipes. So you are going to share a couple of really good family recipes that use honey, and I'll put those on randomsweets.com so that people can go and get the recipes there.
First, before we even get to that, mixing it into the recipes and all of that, we use honey just about on everything. So I think that's probably our go-to is we top it with everything, so it's going in our coffees, in our teas, it's going on our toast, it's going on our cereals, on our bagels, on our chicken, even sometimes when we're grilling. So using it up in a sauce and all of that. So that's probably our go-to use for the honey. But we have some recipes here for you too. The other thing, ice cream. Oh my goodness. If you've not just had honey on ice cream, it's fabulous. You've got, and then top it with some of those salty sunflower seeds, and you got your sweet honey and your ice cream. Oh, fruit, you can't go wrong. A topping on pancakes, phenomenal. So
something that's weird is I told somebody that I did honey and cornbread, and they looked at me like so crazy. I'm like, what? You guys don't do that? Is that just an 80 thing? I don't know.
That's smothered.
I can't imagine. Yeah, no, I can't imagine eating cornbread without honey.
I know.
So I don't.
We like to visit the barbecue shack in Brookings, and the owner there has been a family friend, and we come in and he wants to hide his honey off the table. So he's like, he knows that cornbread's going to be saturated in honey. That's just another one of our favorite uses.
Yeah. So it's so funny that you invited us to be on a cooking foodie kind of podcast, because before I got married several years ago, I could barely cook spaghetti. And I have come such a long ways, and now I am cooking with honey all the time. one of my favorite recipes that I've been doing a lot this summer is a mojito. I do a mocktail, but you could do a cocktail where you're replacing the simple syrup. Instead of sugar, you're using honey, and that's been so good and so nice and refreshing on a hot summer day. So I've just been very into that.
I have a quick question, or it's funny because so you're sharing this mojito mocktail recipe, Sarah, and I just finished recording an episode with Sarah Darnell. Well, Alfano is her married name now, from Madera Acres Greenhouse, another now third generation business in South Dakota with Sarah. They're at 71 years, I think. But her and Lynn Darnell did a podcast with me, and they shared some recipes, and Sarah shared a mojito, a mocktail. And so I was getting confused about what.
That is too funny. Yeah, very popular, I guess.
Right. But what I like is that, so in hers, of course, she's using what we typically do for the simple syrup is the cup of sugar, the cup of water. But I'm guessing that you could substitute the cup of honey and do the water for any simple syrup. Like I make simple syrup for cake.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is like a revelation for me.
What's so nice about the simple syrup is it's so easy to whip up, and you can do large quantities and then just keep it in a jar to use it, like you said, for baking or other cocktails that you're doing. So it's so easy. That's what I love about it.
Yeah. If you're not using simple syrup for like cake or cupcakes, you just need to, because all you're doing is when you bake a cake or cupcakes, you just kind of brush that simple syrup over the top before you frost it. And it just adds this level of moisture. And then if you're doing honey, there's going to be a little flavor that's just going to set whatever you're making over the top of anyone else.
Well,
it's
and
excellent.
Honey in baking, when you mention that, it goes hand in hand. Honey will help retain the moisture within the product and keep it just nice and fresh and moist. And I had a banana bread recipe from my grandmother, and we were trying to locate it here, and hopefully we'll get it to you. But the thing I loved about that, it was better as the bread aged, the ripeness and the taste of the bananas and the honey, and it just enhanced the bread product. So I would encourage it to play around with it and try to work it into any bread recipe that you might have.
Tell me about substituting honey for sugar. Is it a 1-to-1?
Some people have done a 1-to-1 ratio. I think it's probably a little bit more popular to do like a 3/4 cup of honey to 1 cup of sugar. And it's the sweetness that you're looking out for there, that if you just want to decrease it a little bit more so you don't get overpoweringly sweet. So that is important. And then if you have other liquids in the recipe, you might want to slightly decrease those liquids as well, just so you still have a good sticky, thick product that you're working with.
Sure, because honey is actually, real true honey is typically, it is sweeter than sugar, right?
It is, yes. Yeah. So, and other thing to play with when you're cooking with it is your varieties of honey and what you are looking for as an end product. So if I'm making like a barbecue sauce or something of that nature, I'm probably going to want to put in a darker, more flavorful, rich honey into that barbecue sauce. It will just have a little bit more robust honey flavor that comes through. Whereas if I'm doing something light in maybe a light baking product that I don't want a heavy flavor in, I'm going to want to go with my light honeys. So the color of the honey will oftentimes dictate the taste of the honey. So the darker, the stronger the flavor, the lighter the honey, the lighter and sweeter the flavor.
Okay. You have I don't know if we're talking great grandma 80s apple crisp. So whose great grandma? Is that your great grandma, Sarah?
Yeah, yes, that would be mine. We're getting it confused. And it would be Sarah's great grandmother, my grandmother. So it would have been my dad's mother. So.
Okay. And so you're going to share an apple crisp recipe that uses honey.
Yes. Yes. Okay. It is amazing. Yeah. So, do you want me, I can read through it right now if you want, or
I'm sure. Yeah. Because apple crisp is usually, pretty few ingredients. So just tell me what
It
the
is few
ingredients are.
ingredients, and we are coming up on apple season. So here it
Ah,
coming up before we know it. And so it has 4 cups of apples that are, cut and sliced, ready to go. A little bit of lemon juice to make sure those apples don't get brown, and about a half a cup of honey. So
mm,
put that in there. Then you want to make the topping, which is the flour, the brown sugar, some oatmeal with a little bit of butter and cinnamon. Put a little cinnamon on your apples as well. Put your topping on top of your apples and bake away. So I usually go a little bit heavier on the butter side of things, which probably isn't most healthy, but I like to make it a very buttery topping. So it's
it's okay. You're cooking with fruit, Marla. So it's
Yeah,
okay.
Yes, and honey, right?
Yeah,
That's
it's
my rule.
healthy,
Right.
very healthy for you.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and then
So
one of
go
our
ahead.
favorites for a sauce is just that honey fudge sauce. It is a standby thing that we always have at Honey Days. It is really pretty easy to make as well, and it tastes amazing. So we're going to get that recipe for you too. But that's just simply mixing together. You got marshmallows and honey and cornstarch and a little bit of cocoa and some butter, and you can mix it on the stovetop. We have cheated. We have mixed it in the microwave, and it actually has worked in the past. So that is the one that we have at Honey Days when we give out the honey Sundays in the evening at the park after the pork barbecue. So, and my sister-in-law is usually the family member that makes the gallons of honey fudge for us. So it's been kind of a fun tradition. We go work on the float, and she goes and makes honey fudge. So
well, we were wondering about that because when I talked to Mary Bierke, who MCs the parade and has been involved many years. So in her podcast episode, we got on the topic of the honey fudge sauce, and they shared the recipe because they pulled out what Mary has that I will now covet forever till I find one. She has some South Dakota honey cookbook that was put out years ago by like the honey producer industry,
Yes.
something under the Department of Ag. Do you have one?
I do. I do.
My gosh, you guys. We were talking about it being at Honey Days and buying your meal after the parade, and then they're doing the ice cream and the honey sauce. Well, we were trying to figure out who makes all of that.
Well, we have it at different people. So when we give out the honey Sundays for free at the pork barbecue in the evening, we do that all within the Adee family. Now the community club will also have Sundays available to purchase after the lunch, after the parade. And the community club members make their fudge for that using the same recipe. Yeah, otherwise it's my sister-in-law, Darla. Community club just does a really fun, great job with Honey Days and making sure honey is where they're doing some of their activities. They use it for a fundraiser. So they'll sell the honey and use the proceeds to buy new toys for the park or swing sets. They have different things all the time that they're working to raise money for. So it benefits the community.
So there's tons of activities going on on that weekend of Bruce Honey Days, and we kind of are sharing those in a previous podcast. So I do have a question though, like, how did the Honey Days start? I mean, it wasn't Adee Honey Farms that started it. It's a community coming together, and it was Honey Days. Like you said, the Bruce bees were always the mascot for the school. And
yeah, it is. And, I think it kind of came to play, I believe maybe 90 or 91 was one of the first years it started. I can't quite remember. But, I don't know if you recall when the state centennials went through. And all these little communities had their little state centennial celebration, and we had parades and fun and all of that. And Bruce is always, they did a big parade. They did a bicentennial parade. The community has always just come out and participated very well with that. And I think it had been so long since we did like the state centennial. Somebody in the community club was brainstorming, what in the world can we do? And they came up with doing a Honey Days and talked to us and saw, if we would be in support. And absolutely we are. We don't do a lot of the work. We're there, we're participating, much like a lot of people are, but the community club carries the load for having a great weekend and having a fun schedule of things to do.
And will people, if they come to Bruce Honey Days, will you be selling any of your products, Adee Honey products there?
Absolutely. Our products will be there. We will not be selling them. We allow the community club to sell them, and then they take those proceeds. So
Wow.
we will donate that product to the community club for their benefit and use. So.
Oh, that's incredible. Okay. Let's do a quick kind of a fun facts sort of trivia. Can I just do some quick questions here with you?
Well, sure. Go for it.
Okay. I guess one of the big things is my honey's crystallized. Now what?
Very easy to fix. It's best if it's in a glass container, that you just need to take a saucepan of water, and you don't even need to fill it up very full, but maybe a quarter to a half at the most, and put your little container in there. Take the lid off the container, set it on low heat, and just let it sit there and warm throughout the day. If I have it happen, I tend to do that on days that Saturday when I'm cleaning the house. I'll put my crystallized honey in there, and I'll just let it kind of sit and do its thing while I clean the house. And then by the time I'm done, it's like, oh, I've got it all liquefied again. So
Great tip. Okay.
yeah. For the plastic, it's a little harder, and that is simply because people don't recommend getting plastic warmed. So that's just kind of a personal preference of how you feel about that. But it would be the same thing. Just gentle heat on it will liquefy it again. So.
Okay. And baking with honey, I think you had a tip about adding baking soda.
Absolutely. So the honey has some natural acidity to it. So if you put just like a little pinch of baking soda along with it, it will keep your baking goods lighter instead of heavier. So it will give you that nice lightness that you like in a lot of your baked goods. So
Yeah.
Well, and one more thing, when you're cooking with honey, usually you'll want to do a little bit cooler temperature. I think they say reduce it by about 25 degrees, just so it's not quite as hot. When you warm up honey, sometimes it can get a little bit darker. So that's just another little note when you're baking with honey.
Oh, okay. When we have recipes that have corn syrup or maple syrup, can they be interchanged with honey, or you?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yep, they
Okay.
can.
So if you're making, go ahead, Marla.
On those with like a maple syrup, I would be pretty close to the 1:1. You will probably have a thicker product in the honey than what your maple syrup is, so there wouldn't be a need to reduce any other liquids, because you probably need that viscosity in the recipe that they have the syrup in. So
if I'm making Special K bars, or other people know them as scotcheroos, where you're mixing the cup of corn syrup with sugar and then adding the peanut butter, can you do a cup of honey instead?
You could. I would probably reduce it a little bit. And for that kind of thing, if you're going to be holding it in your hands, I think you're going to want a little bit of the firmness that is there. But I wouldn't do 1-for-1. I would reduce it to about 3/4 to 1.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm going to try that. See what happens.
Yeah.
Because because you have to boil the corn syrup with that sugar to get that consistency that you need to kind of not harden, but to bring the bar together.
Set. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. So that will be that's why you would not want to do 1-for-1, because you probably would get them very sticky. So I would just reduce it I would start at that 3/4 and see if I could get that to hold. So it'll be a little bit of a playing process, but you definitely can do it. Most
oh my goodness. I can just imagine the flavor, how much better the flavor would be too.
Right. Well, and it doesn't spike the blood glucose in your body the way that other sugars can. So not feel guilty, as guilty. It's definitely still a sweetener, but maybe not as guilty as the other sugars. So
allergies, if you eat local honey, it helps with allergies. Is that true?
Yes. Yep. Especially that raw honey, that if you're sourcing your honey in a local area, those bees are collecting pollen and nectar from some of those plants that you're living with. And so if you do suffer with any allergies in the fall, we do suggest getting raw honey from your local honey producer, and it should help alleviate some of those symptoms.
Yeah, it's not usually an immediate thing like an Aleve D. Sometimes you have to be, it has to be getting into your system. It's kind of like a little bit of an allergy inoculation that you're getting with your honey. Because when you get allergy shots or something of that nature, they're giving you a little bit of what triggers you to get you desensitized to it. So it is a little bit of a process, but we have had people had big success with it. In fact, that's one of the reasons they come to get the raw honey, is because this has worked for them, and they're not wanting to miss out on the good raw honey in the production season.
Maybe that's why I don't have allergies.
There we go.
It could be. I just as a personal story, I grew up here, had honey from the time I was crawling, most likely, and ate it all the time. I had moved away and went probably almost 10 years without having as much honey in my college years as I might have had. I came back and I had allergies. And I was like, wait a minute, I don't have allergies. And I, in my mind, think that I was just constantly getting a little bit of that all that time, and never had an issue with it. So now I'm back on a good honey regimen and doing much, much better. But it really hit it home for me personally. So.
Marla, you should have been making more cocktails with honey in it when you were in college.
That's what I should have been going in my college years. Yeah.
That's right. Well, speaking of being young or babies, then what age can you start giving honey to babies?
They usually recommend that they want those babies to be at least 1 year old. And the reason why they say that is because typically those young little infants will have a hard time digesting any type of honey. And so better to be safe than sorry. So usually hold off until at least 1 year for those little babies.
Okay. What are some surprising or interesting ways that people can use honey outside of the kitchen?
Burns. If I burn myself, first thing I do is put some honey on it. It's kind of like aloe vera in the way that it helps heal that wound up. Honey is antibacterial, and it just seals that wound. You're not getting stuff back in it, and it just gives it that much more of an edge to heal faster.
So we need to add honey sticks to our first aid kits.
There you go. I have heard a lot of burn units in hospitals will utilize honey for that, to soothe the person's skin with the honey, to keep a part of the healing process as they get bad things growing on the skin as it's trying to heal, and it really helps protect against that. So
what a beautiful product.
It is. It has so many uses.
It is very versatile. Some people have been doing honey face masks because of those antibacterial properties, and helps treat like acne and acne scarring. And so there is a lot of different uses for honey, which is one of the reasons why it's just so cool. Not only can you eat it, but it treats all these different things, which is just so neat.
God gave us a little miracle product right there, and we've been fortunate enough to work with it. So.
Can you imagine going to a spa and being like covered in honey? We did that once when we were on a vacation.
Yeah. Coming out with that just soft skin.
We should start a honey spa.
We should.
I was just going to say the Adee Honey Farms honey spa.
Yeah, there we go. Book your appointment now.
Add that to the chalkboard.
Yeah.
There you go. Your chalkboard is getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
I have a friend, Carl Steggy. I think that he said he adds some honey to his spaghetti sauce.
I've heard that.
And so I did that once, and then I also added it to my chili. And so maybe it's similar to how people will put a little brown sugar into their like red sauce.
It kind of toned down the tomato.
The honey was wonderful. I mean, you don't taste it, but it just sort of, again, elevated the dish without really knowing how.
Yeah. It just blended with the flavors, kind of toned down the tomato part of it, and it adds a lot of depth to the flavor.
And Sarah, did you say something about do you put honey on your pizza?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I've been on such a big honey and pepperoni pizza kick recently. I found this awesome recipe online with some homemade dough, and you can do whatever toppings you want, but there's just something about like the savory of the pepperonis with the sweet of the honey that is just so darn good. I could probably like the whole pizza by myself. Just with that sweet and savory, it's just such an awesome combination. I think one of the first times I came across that was in a restaurant in Colorado, and their whole thing is honey and pizza, and they have these big jugs of honey that are sitting on your table, and they recommend that you eat your pizza, dip it in the honey. And that was really the first experience that I had. And ever since, I just have not gone back. I pretty much always eat it with honey.
Yeah, they're having that lovely big thick crust on the end of the pizza too. So
it's
amazing.
Are you just drizzling the honey over the top? Again, if you have honey sticks and now you're going to start drizzling your honey, do you just drizzle it over the top of the pizza?
Yeah, you definitely
pepperoni's what we eat around here.
Yeah, definitely. You can drizzle it over the top. Some people have gotten really creative and made their own hot honey. So you'll just add some like crushed red pepper, any other kind of like spicy things that you want to add to it. Just kind of adds another little flavor element to it. But you can drizzle it, dunk it, anything really. Absolutely.
I'm gonna have to try that. Unless you have something else to share, I want to make sure that you let people know what your website is, your social media, so that people know where to find you, since you don't technically have a physical place. I mean, you do have a physical place if somebody wants to come in to buy honey, but give us all the details about where people can find you.
Yeah, so people can find us in person at our Bruce, South Dakota or Roscoe, South Dakota locations. And we have a couple stores sprinkled throughout the Brookings area that also have some of our jars of honey. And then anything online, just look us up, adeehoneyfarms.com. You can hop on our website. We have lots of blog posts if you're ever wondering how to use honey or different recipe inspirations. We also have our story on there that people could read through again. And then our social media is just Adee Honey Farms, I think, on all platforms. So pretty easy to find that way.
All right. Well, I will see you at Bruce Honey Days.
Yay. We'll see you there.
We got a lot of work to do before that.
I know. So I really appreciate that you took an hour and a half of your time here to sit down and talk about all of this, because it is such a crazy busy time for you. So I really do appreciate it. And my dad grew up around Bruce. And so Bruce is kind of my dad's stomping grounds, right? So we feel like we have family ties. And so Adee Honey is what we've had in our family for all the years that I can remember, and have loved to eat your product. Now I love to see other ways that you're using things and bringing out this really fun merchandise, and it's a great family business, and can't wait to see where you take it next. So
thanks a lot.
Thanks for having us on. It's been so fun.
Thanks for letting us get our story out there. We appreciate this opportunity.
Anytime you want to come back and talk about anything else, you can. Mocktails, cocktails, whatever.
Sounds great.
All right. Well, you have a fantastic day. Thank you again.
So after this episode, I will be playing around with my special K-bar recipe and my caramel peanut butter corn chips to see if I can substitute all or some of the corn syrup with honey. And if Marla finds that honey banana bread recipe, I'll be sure to add it to my website, along with the rest of today's recipes and photos. I love that Adee Honey Farms donates their honey to the Bruce Community Club for Honey Days. They're such a sweet family. No wonder they've been in business for 66 years and counting. I really encourage you to check out their website, adeehoneyfarms.com, and follow them on social media. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for pressing play. If you're enjoying Funeral Potatoes and Wool Mittens, please subscribe and then share it with your family and friends. And tune in next week for episode 32, which is the season 1 finale. And let me know what you think about honey on your pizza. Sweet wishes!